Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Hi, welcome to GamePunx.
Yeah.
My name is Ryan.
I'm Ben, I think, if 2021 allows me to exist.
It has been an interesting, 3 weeks now? 3 weeks into the year 2021? And it already feels like a whole ass fucking year has passed.
Super 2020 Turbo!
That's basically what it is. I mean, this is just the year 2022X. This is what it's going to be for the rest of our lives. So we just got to put up with this fucking shit for now. In the span of 3 weeks, a bunch of stupid MAGA chuds tried to overthrow the United States Capitol building. And,
the cops let them in very graciously.
They did. It was pretty unabashed. They were just like, "Hey, what's good?" Giving hugs to all these fuckers, opening the doors, letting them steal old statues, which is fine, steal a fucking statue, whatever.
Yeah, whatever. It doesn't matter.
But there was
you can deface property.
Zip ties who are just gonna let's take some fucking hostages. And okay.
There was that one lady who got shot. Then there was that one cop who got trampled.
I
guess
do
blue
laugh
lives don't matter.
Well,
sorry.
He was he was a black cop apparently. So.
Oh well.
Is it a blue life that matters? If it was a black life that mattered? This some wild shit. Basically, if you're a cop lives don't matter. But yeah, that was fucking wild. Some dude tased himself so hard in the balls he died.
Apparently that's not true.
Well, it doesn't matter. It's true.
Yeah, I know. That's because that's what I wanted to get into that because I shared that story and then Facebook was like, actually he died of a heart attack and it doesn't actually say it was because of the taser. And I was like, fuck you. I don't want to fact check this. He tased himself in the balls till he died.
You know where the facts came from? The family who probably doesn't want
their
idiot QAnon reading dad tased himself in the fucking nutsack until he died.
You're laughing? A grown man tased himself in the balls till he died and you're laughing?
Yes. Just the meme? Yes. That's big brain right now for that. But it is.
And then everyone getting picked up by the FBI and shit. And you're just oh, cool. It does go both ways, at least a little bit. Somewhat.
Yeah. It's been fucking crazy. All of this shit has just been... the last couple of weeks have been freaking nuts.
Yeah.
So...
I mean, yeah.
It's... I was just thinking, what a great thing it would do, what a great rehabilitative activity it would be to just kind of sit down and talk about the things in 2020 that we liked. Yeah. Because there were very few of them, so it would make for a good short podcast.
It's true.
But I wrote down I wrote a very tiny list of we have
5
some bullet points
that we're gonna just kind of
I
guess toss back and forth.
Yeah, we can just go off of them. I mean, I have mine written down. You don't have yours written down. You just say a thing after I say a thing, or I say a thing. It shouldn't be that hard. I mean, there were things you liked. You did.
I watched The Lighthouse. I watched The Lighthouse.
That's true. You did.
That did come out in 2019, but it was a highlight of my 2020.
That was a really good ass movie, and we had to have a great conversation about it too.
Yeah,
that movie was awesome. I need to rewatch it. It's been I think it's been since I first saw it that I haven't seen it. So it'd be my second time
watched
over.
It twice.
To watch.
Yeah, I've watched it twice. I think I watched it once and then I waited 2 weeks or something and watched it immediately again.
I feel like a fool for missing it in the theater because now we can't go to theaters and shit.
Well, I mean, it had such a limited release in the theaters,
but they had it at Cinema du Parc. Just so nice.
Oh, really? Of course they had it at fucking Cinema.
Yeah, that's where they always screen shit like that.
Yeah, no, I know. Yeah. But I did not catch wind of this movie until this year.
I think they had it at the old Forum too, which would make sense. They always show stuff there as well.
Yeah,
although I don't like going there as much. I find it sticky.
I think the best way to have seen the top quality way to have seen Lighthouse would have been at Fantasia.
Yeah, that would have been cool. I mean, I did see some good shit at Fantasia, but all the Fantasia stuff that was supposed to be there this summer, I ended up watching when they did their online festival, which was pretty fun. There was some good stuff that came out this year. I watched a really crazy Japanese movie that I really liked. But nice. It's been a hot 2021 so far. It's been fucking crazy and kind of relentless. So
the longest year of our lives.
So let's just reminisce of the few good things that were present in 2020. I guess the first... I guess just to say, all of these things obviously are just things that make brain feel good when I think about them. And when I was doing them, brain felt good and happy. and I wasn't thinking about how I was basically sitting on my ass for half the year collecting checks from the government and not working, which was really depressing and awful. But yeah, first thing I wrote down is good gameplay loops. There's nothing that, I don't know, gets me kind of mentally active than like playing a game that just has a nice gameplay loop, because I can multitask while I play a game like that.
Yeah.
And I guess the two games I wrote down for that on my list were playing Hyrule Warriors and the new one, of course, Age of Calamity, and No More Heroes 1. Both games I beat this year. No More Heroes 1's first time I ever beat that game, because it's the first time I ever spent enough time with it to beat. And as for Hyrule Warriors, it's the first time I've ever beaten a Hyrule Warriors game, because the only other one I owned was on 3DS, and I actually haven't played my copy of it yet. So it was the first time I ever beat that game. And yeah, both of these were like incredibly rewarding experiences, but a large part of their gameplay is just kind of grinding, either for money or for levels, for weapons, whatever. And the reason I like a grindy action game like that, or a grindy adventure game, whatever you want to call it, a grindy Muso game, grindy brawler, whatever. I like a game like that because I could just kind of kick back, throw on a podcast, play some music and just
turn brain off and mash button.
Exactly. And I mean, Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, lots of grinding, and like I still haven't fully 100%ed that game because there are so many side missions and side characters to get, if you just go and play these different little quests that are off to the side. I have most of the side characters. I'm only missing one of them. But the fact that they give you the opportunity to just go and grind a lot in between levels padded out the game for me and just kind of made me feel like I was really getting my money's worth in terms of just like content, because there was a lot in that game to unlock, a lot to do, a lot of customizability, unlocking alternate costumes for Link, or unlocking some alternate costumes even for Zelda and for the other champions. So that was fun. There's just a lot of little cute things to grind for. And on top of the game, I think just being really an enjoyable experience from start to finish, and loving experimenting with different weapons. So yeah, Hyrule Warriors, great gameplay loop. Got to listen to a lot of Retronauts while I was playing it, which was nice. And No More Heroes 1, same thing. Just driving around Santa Destroy on that big-ass Akira bike. Going to just do different missions, grinding for gold, and then buying Travis a new t-shirt and wearing it when I go into my next mission. It's the simple things like that you can just kind of zone out to and enjoy doing. Mm-hmm. That was something that really stood out to me, is like, oh, there's a lot of games that I played this year that were just full of good gameplay loops. What about you?
Yeah. Gameplay loop wise, one of the ones I'm probably only going to name two, because there's only two that I can think of that have like an actual loop to them. One of them is much simpler than the other, and I'll start off with the more simpler one. And my pick for best gameplay loop for me for 2020 was definitely Fall Guys. That was my I want to play something, but I don't care what happens.
Yes, exactly.
Or like I want to be playing a video game, have a podcast on in the background, or be listening to like music, and I don't know what to play. I don't want anything with too much involvement, but I also want some kind of stimulation, and I don't really feel like watching a show.
It's funny to think that before Among Us really hit, Fall Guys was like the go-to party streaming game.
I mean, it still is. Fall Guys is still
it's not that it's unpopular, but I feel like the media stopped like paying attention to it. Its popularity was like just, not that I think Among Us is a bad game, but like just totally eclipsed Fall Guys like within a couple of months of Fall Guys really starting to pick up in popularity.
Kind of what happened was Fall Guys kind of had this thing where and this is not at the fault of the devs. I know that like game dev is hard and shit, but it's Fall Guys released, people played for like I'll say 2 months, but I like, this is, don't fucking quote me on this. I don't know the exact time frame, but I'm gonna say 2 months. People are fucking in there, right? 2 months in there. The problem with early Fall Guys, which they have since replicated because there are many different maps, there are a bunch of new things happening. It has improved a lot, but the thing with base vanilla Fall Guys was that you'd be sorry. You'd be doing the same maps a lot, and there wasn't a lot of variation. I think, actually, in the video that I edited of my stream of Fall Guys, I had the seesaws so many times that it was like basically all I played. Like all the video is basically just the seesaw level, which is probably one of the most frustrating like starter levels too, because it depends on everyone else who's also trying to get to the end understanding how seesaws work, and they usually don't. So that's the thing, right? You hit this loop of like always seeing the same maps, and at some point you're like, there's nothing different. Like it's always the same. Since then, they have thrown in like little things to mix it up. Like you'll have vertical seesaws, which are tilting forward and backwards instead of sideways. You'll have like other obstacles. There's complete other maps now. The castle rush shit, which was one of my favorite things that they added, which was just like climbing on boxes to hop over a wall to get over to another wall to hop over that wall to finally.
That sounds
get to,
like a lot of fun.
It was chaotic and it was amazing. Like Fall Guys is very fun, and they have done very good work on updating the maps. The only thing is that Among Us peaked in popularity before the new maps started coming out. So it kind of like overshadowed it in the main media, and then after Among Us started getting a little slower, because again, same problem, no new maps, no new content, nothing was really changing. You kind of get used to the same map, and then like everyone's super pro to the point where like you'll be streaming with friends and your friend will do a thing, and then you'll be like, you didn't do that task, you waited till someone else did the task, and I saw the bar go up, but it wasn't you who did it because you waited too long to move. And like it's just such hyper specific like behavior that was super pinnable that you're like, okay, the game, like I know this game too well now. It's not even fun anymore. I'm not like, we're not screaming at each other. We're just like, no, it was you. It was you. Fuck off. I've played this game with you so much. I know it was you.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think I talked about it earlier in one of the earlier episodes, but there was it's kind of the problem where like me and Connor played, right? And Connor's one of my like oldest friends, closest friends for a long, long time. And we played with a bunch of random people, and like I just said something a certain way, and he was like, it's Ben.
Fuck.
And I was like, what do you mean it's me? It's like, I've known you for 5 years. I can tell you did this weird thing where you like enunciated one word differently. You're lying. You're going out.
Holy
and he was
shit.
right. I was totally fucking lying. I was like, this fucking sucks. Fuck you, Connor.
At a certain point, you get to know somebody so well that their tics are very readable, and that I guess is that's partly the fun of a game like that, but also
exactly
because
then you can work on that, right? You can like be like, okay, I got to be super aware of this one thing.
Try and think what won't be conspicuous.
So there's fun things like that, and like it's just it's kind of one of those other things where like the maps, everyone played basically all the maps. Everyone had kind of their favorite ones, which was either the first or second, because the third one was kind of big and very hard and not like I personally didn't play it much, so I don't really know if it gets easier, but it's like a very large map, so it's very hard for like the crew members to actually win on that map.
Yes.
And then like after Among Us started to fall off, Phantasm or some like ghost hunting game kind of gained popularity. It's in early access. I don't remember what it's called. It's not Phantasm because that's a movie.
But it's a very good movie.
If you haven't seen Phantasm,
I have.
That is a very good.
That movie's awesome.
Movie to relieve yourself from 2020.
It's definitely good escapism.
Yeah.
The last thing I'm thinking about right now is fucking ghosts.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. The game, it didn't look interesting to me, but it also gained kind of popularity, but not on the level of Among Us and Fall Guys. What I'm still seeing now a lot of is Fall Guys. I don't really know anyone who still plays Among Us, which is unfortunate because that game was very good and fun. I mean, there's definitely still groups. It's just personally, like, I don't have any
I know
so I haven't
many
played.
people who play it every day.
Oh yeah, probably.
To which I must ask, when does the fun end? Because I personally haven't spent any time with the game, but it just to me kind of seems like the thing that I would get tired of very quickly.
Yeah, well, I did about a month of playing like once a week.
Okay.
With like different groups of people.
Yeah.
And it was very fun, but then again, like you get to know these groups of people and you're like, I know your tells, you're lying. But sometimes it's not always like some people adapt very well and you're like, oh, this is still fun, but like we've done this map so much, like it's just kind of, it's getting tired.
It's just
getting tired. It doesn't have. I don't know. It's not a gameplay loop that I find very satisfying. Whereas Fall Guys, I can just hop in whenever, and I'm like, ha ha. I think
Fall Guys benefits from just kind of the general chaos of the gameplay experience itself, versus I think Among Us being a lot more of a tight and controlled like thing with like a little bit of differentiation per round, versus how Fall Guys is just like it can be fucking nuts.
Oh yeah, no, you can play the same map like 1,000 times in Fall Guys,
and it'll never feel the same.
Well, I mean, you'll have like 100 of each variation.
Yeah, which is pretty good, I have to say.
Yeah, it's the odds are still very well. But,
yeah, that's not so bad. But gameplay loops are a good thing. You can just have a good time with that. The next thing I had on my list was I played a lot of good JRPGs.
I had one more.
Oh yeah,
I had one more gameplay loop.
Hit us up with your gameplay loop.
I'm gonna not spend too much time on this one.
Don't worry about it.
As opposed to how much time I've actually spent in game.
Okay.
But the next gameplay loop I want to talk about, which has always been a very satisfying gameplay loop for me. It's one of my favorite game franchises of all time, and it's a game that I think I talked about right before we fell off for a couple of weeks because life happened. And it's Monster Hunter World.
Hell yeah.
I've pumped.
Honestly, I think MH king of the gameplay loop.
I've pumped I think 80 hours in since the last time we talked about it.
Wow. That's pretty impressive, I gotta say.
And like, I mean, that's the thing, right? The gameplay loop of Monster Hunter is pretty simple. You go kill monsters. You need to grind for materials to build weapons, to kill monsters faster, or to have armor that gives you boosts so that you live longer, or you can kill monsters faster. It's basically a numbers game. It's me and Connor have talked about how it feels like an MMORPG but fun.
That is a really you know what I completely agree, because when I first played MH, I didn't really have any frame of reference for the style of game it was, except for MMO.
Phantasy Star.
Yeah.
It feels like a Phantasy Star.
It is really a lot like PSO.
Yeah.
And I'm not somebody who played PSO while it was like fucking huge, but I'm familiar with the gameplay experience of PSO, and I have played, like, dabbled in other like MMOs before. Like I dabbled in World of Warcraft a little bit. Really didn't like it, but I tried it out. I dabbled a little bit in a bunch of different kinds of MMOs just in general. And, the only one that I haven't tried yet, which I probably should because I'd probably get addicted, is FF14. But
yeah, that's the one I'm also staying away from because everyone's like, it's the best one ever. And I'm like, no.
I'm like, oh, that sounds dangerous.
Yeah. I have Monster Hunter. I'm good. Thank you.
Yeah, but MH, definitely in terms of that kind of gameplay feeling really similar to the way that you would play an MMO, it's pretty fucking close.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
that's
with Monster Hunter Rise on the horizon.
Yeah, I'm going to grab that shit up pretty quick as soon as I see it. I want to see what the reception's going to be on it, but I have
the demo came out about a week ago, I think.
Yeah, I don't play the demos because
don't do the demo, but the overall mood of the demo is holy shit, cool.
Okay, that sounds good. I mean, I want to. I guess I'll see what the full reviews are like, but I just want to make sure it's the full MH experience and it's not just
of course.
like
okay. Well, as someone who's been playing since 3, you're gonna be happy. Monster Hunter has never taken a step back.
That is true, and I have played the MH games on 3DS for what it's worth. Like I've enjoyed my time that I spent with those. But no, I think Rise is going to be the game that maybe gets me into it. It's the one that I'm going to throw my chips down on. It's going to be like, either I like this or I don't. I think I'm going to really like it because I'm going to be able to really invest like a lot of time into it.
Rise is the one that's convincing me to save up for a Switch when I move in with my partner.
Well,
the shit that I've seen from Rise looks nuts.
It looks like it's going to be...
The potential is going to be
It's going to be nice to be able to play that handheld. That's what I'll say. Because I liked Monster Hunter a lot as a handheld experience.
It's a very fun handheld.
Yeah.
Rise had the cool thing of, like, you're always online, so finding a group is kind of easy. But also, after the pandemic's over, if you have friends that have it, like, it'll also be just as easy, and you're going to be playing with the same people all the time, so you'll know how to run a team.
Exactly.
Like, that's what me and Connor have been doing. It's just been me and him, except for a few rare times where other people will hop in, randoms, and it still goes well, but like overall it's just me and him being like, all right, what are we fucking killing today?
It'll also be the first time I can ever play Monster Hunter with other people, because I never played the 3DS games with other people. I played them solo, which is like totally valid and fine way to experience the game.
Totally fine, but it is a hindering experience.
Monster Hunter is built, I think, for like just going out with a party of friends.
I'd say at least two people is the best way to experience Monster Hunter, because you can still it'll be a little harder, but
split screen Monster Hunter 3 multiplayer on Wii with my buddy Alex.
God, split screen, Jesus.
Which is like, I gotta say, despite everything that sounds like, was very fun. So
yes, no, exactly. Well, I mean, I was living with my roommate, and his name was Paul, and I was like, Paul, what the fuck is Monster Hunter? This game looks kind of cool, because I had my DS, right? And I was like, I'm looking for a new game. I just beat Pokemon X. What should I get? And he was like, get Monster Hunter 3U. We can play together. I was like, but you don't have a DS. He was like, I have a Wii U, because I am crazy, I guess.
Yeah, because I bought one.
And we can crossplay, and we just spent like hours. I think I told you, like, 3 is the one I have like 1,000 hours in.
That's insane.
I think 600 of those hours was playing with Paul.
Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah, and like, I mean, playing with Connor, I told you last time, I think I was at like 52 hours or something, and I bumped it up to 80, and I'm like 115, maybe 20.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
So it's a worthwhile experience.
It is, if it hooks you. That's the thing. I've always, it's really hard to, because like, I will recommend this game till my deathbed. I will push it, and I will be like, yes, play it. But if people bounce off, I'm like, you're not ready for it. You're not going to get hooked yet, so I'm not going to push you, because you're going to come back to it later, probably, when you're like, I don't know what else to play. Let's try this Monster Hunter thing again. And at some point, it will hook you. That's what happened with World for me.
Okay. Was
that I bounced off like 3 different times. I was like, I'm gonna put the time in, and I made it up to like 50 hours, and I was like, it's not doing it. And then like this, once it started getting colder, because it's a very like comforting game, which is, I should have talked about it when we did our comfort game episode, actually, but I didn't think about it. Because it was before I got hooked back in. But it's a very fun game to just kind of lose yourself in and be like, I'm going to go kill this monster. I'm going to go harvest this honey and herbs to make potions because I'm low on potions, or like whatever. Just so much shit that you can do. And it's a very fun, it's kind of Animal Crossing-y in more
it is actually kind of like that. In the sense that it's like a game that rewards your time investment. Really fruitfully.
Well, I mean, I don't know if you remember, the old DS ones had the classic DS thing of like, hey, remember to take a break.
Yep.
Please.
I remember that, because they know you're going to pour hours and hours into it. And that's absolutely, I remember that. But, Monster Hunter, actually probably the king of the gameplay loop in terms of just like kind of perfecting, the addicting qualities of an MMO, but replicating it on a console and improving it in practically every way that they could.
Yeah,
just a really, really great experience. So gameplay loops are nice and should make you very happy.
Yeah, and another one-sentence gameplay loop that I'm going to get out of the way is fighting games. Every fighting game I played in 2020 was a great gameplay loop. That's it. That's all I have to say about that.
I completely agree. I enjoyed all the time that I put into Battle for the Grid, that's for sure. All right, next phase. I said... I wrote good JRPGs, but more what I mean is just good long games that I put down and keep coming back to, but also games that tell stories that you can easily get invested in. I wrote good JRPGs, and the games I wrote down are SMT Strange Journey Redux, Dragon Quest VIII, and Bug Fables. So SMT Strange Journey Redux, picked it up a couple of months ago now, back when I bought my my 2DS XL, because I knew them shits was going to get expensive really quick, and believe it or not, they did. So I was very smart to buy one when I did. But I bought it digitally. I installed it on my 3DS, and I have been steadily working my way through it, coming back to it every couple of I guess like once or twice a week, and sitting down and just diving further into those dungeons, getting a little further on into the story, fusing new demons, experimenting and finding like new party combinations. But it's been very, very fun so far. I've really enjoyed the time that I spent with that game. It's like, you know, it's a dungeon crawler, and it's a game that I've never shut the fuck up about on this show. But there's a reason for that. It's just a really fulfilling game. I feel like every time I play it, I'm going somewhere. Like there's forward progression, exploring and uncovering like the maps to these massive dungeons as you go through them, finding out where everything is, and stumbling into a secret or into a little side quest, or even into like a deviation from the plot of the original DS version thanks to the Redux version I'm playing. It's really, really interesting to just kind of see how the game is being remixed as I play through it. But and you know, it also helps that it's brutally hard. It's a difficult game. Even when you slide the difficulty scale down, like this game is brutal. It is unforgiving in that classic, like almost wizardry dungeon crawler style that a lot of other art, like just straight up JRPGs, are not. It's, you know, an Etrian Odyssey type game. If you fuck up, you fuck up. Like,
let it rock.
And if you didn't save when you wanted to save, you might be pretty perfect. So, it is a good game. It's fun. I've really been enjoying that. Dragon Quest VIII, same thing on 3DS. It's a game that I bought when it came out. I started a new save file, I guess, a couple of months ago, and just once again playing my way through it. In my opinion, still maybe one of the best Dragon Quest games, top 5 Dragon Quest game. It's really, really fun. It's got great characters. The 3DS port is an excellent port of that game. That's a PS2 game running on a 3DS, and it looks and sounds excellent. Like, it's a really good-looking, good-sounding game. Even though it's the MIDI kind of music and not like the orchestrations, coming out of a tinny, 3DS speaker, it's a lot more forgivable than the console version, where you want it to be the full orchestra, but it was only the full orchestra in North America, and in Japan you got the shitty MIDI synths.
That MIDI fucking
bullshit. So yeah, Dragon Quest VIII is a very, very good game. It's an old game. I think it was the last Dragon Quest game. I think it was the first Dragon Quest game that Level 5 produced. And it feels a lot like a Level 5 game. Like if you've played anything by Level 5, like Professor Layton, or I guess like Ni no Kuni, another game that I played this year that I also enjoyed investing my time in.
They have that kind of studio feel, kind of like Platinum does.
Exactly. There's something about Level 5's like the style of story and writing.
Yeah,
that's
or Vanillaware.
Yeah, exactly. Where it's very chill. Like it's a house style of writing that, like, combined with like the quirky classic fun of Dragon Quest, really makes like some of like the conversations you have with other characters, or like these locations and little storylines, feel really interesting and fun. Like there's a lot of heart in this game. Like a lot of the stories you get involved in, you feel very invested because the characters are, kind of experiencing shit that really sucks. Like there's dimension to like the multiple small conflicts that you find your party turning up in as you unravel this greater story about, kind of returning the king that you're serving to his human form and restoring the princess from horse back to a girl. So it's a really, really fun little game. Silly, great cast, great voice acting. Really just been enjoying my time with that game. Nice to play it again. And then finally, another quirky JRPG, which I just completed not even 2 weeks ago, Bug Fables and the Everlasting Sapling. What a game. What a game. I've been itching.
That is one that is on my list since you've been talking about it, because I've been very, very interested. I clearly have a couple to clean up.
I really can't speak any more highly of it. It's not a very long game. But
that's never a downside.
Not a huge problem for me.
Never a downside.
What I've been asking for a very long time was for another game that feels like Thousand Year Door. And this game is Paper Mario and the Thousand Year Door, but with a cute new skin, cute new world and characters, different kinds of gameplay, and I think I welcome it, because as much as I love Paper Mario and the Thousand Year Door, and as much as I am, I guess, mildly disappointed that we never got at least one more Paper Mario game that played like that. You know, at two out of how many games now that were like that versus all the other Paper Mario games, which are Super Paper Mario, a good game that's not, in my opinion, not really an RPG. More of a really good adventure game with RPG elements and, fun action RPG combat. And then Sticker Star, which is poo poo caca pee pee and not good. Color Splash, which I never bothered to play because I dislike the Sticker Star so much, and was like, this is probably more of that. And then Origami King, which I got over the last couple of weeks and have been playing, but I started playing after Bug Fables. I feel like Bug Fables filled that hole for me so thoroughly that now playing Origami King, I was willing to open my mind up and like just enjoy what the Paper Mario series has evolved into, as opposed to feeling, stuck on the old games. And I think it was good for me mental health wise to just kind of do that, because it's something that had been really bugging me, and I didn't want to be another toxic person on the internet yelling about how Nintendo doesn't make the kind of Paper Mario games I like anymore, and so blah 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 blah, blah, and getting really mad over stupid bullshit,
upset, angry, screaming.
Exactly. Like, I don't want to be that person, and I try actively not to be. So yeah, Bug Fables really filled that hole for me. It's a brilliant little game. Great soundtrack, which you can buy on Bandcamp, and I recommend you do because it's an awesome sounding game. Really great story and characters that I felt really invested in. I definitely completed it 100%, which is the first time in a long time I've ever 100%ed anything. But I did every side quest, I collected every secret item, I fought every secret boss, and I fought all the they had like Monster Hunt boss quests. I did all of those. They were all really fun. The gameplay was just enough of a spin on the formula that I'm familiar with from Paper Mario and Paper Mario the Thousand Year Door that it forced me to rethink how I approach battling. And I think I like the battles in Bug Fables ultimately a lot more than I like the battles in Paper Mario, just because all of the companions feel fully useful and not just contextually useful. Which is nice. Like, the party feels like a unit and not just Mario plus one, Like, I really feel like I was using everybody's abilities and learning how to play all these characters well. As opposed to when I play Thousand Year Door, you can pretty much brute force your way through that game without necessarily learning how to best take advantage of the other characters that you have in your team.
Yeah,
and
it's not a Bravely default situation.
No, exactly. Which is Bug Fables takes a lot of inspiration, I think, from the Bravely games, in that every character is like serves a purpose within the party, and you can pawn off moves to them. Like, you can sacrifice one character's turn to give another character 2 turns. So this risk-reward battle system and structure is really it's something I appreciate that they added to the battle formula of Paper Mario.
I now need to know, does Bug Fables have any of that goofy time travel shit that I complained about?
Nope.
Good, perfect, excellent.
There is a character who I guess is technically a time traveler.
That's okay. One character's fine, but the whole story revolving around it is shit. The story isn't about
time travel at all. It's a really simple, like Paper Mario in terms of simple story about how there is the Wasp King, and he has usurped the Wasp Kingdom from the Queen and is now just an invading Imperial force that's threatening to ruin the rest of Bugaria, which is the place that you're in. And like I said, I love the visuals of the game. I love the scaling of different objects, and playing as bugs, making the world designers kind of think inventively about what different things look like when you're a bug and what they would be used as. That's really cool. All of this is to say Bug Fables is a really, really great game, and so are Strange Journey Redux and Dragon Quest VIII. These are great JRPGs. 2 of them were really long, and I'm still playing through them, and one of them was like bite-sized and perfect. Then, was there any games like that you were interested in, or do you want me to switch to music?
Well, I haven't really finished I guess the only RPG that I would want to talk about, and I know it doesn't only have to be RPGs, but I think this is the only like actual story-driven game that I've picked up in 2020.
Okay, that's fine.
What else was there? Hold on, I'm just gonna check my Steam real quick.
Sure, don't worry about it.
I just want to check, but the one I want to talk about for sure is I still haven't finished it yet, so I can't talk too much about it. But I've heard that the ending is very good, and it's probably the best of the series. And that is Yakuza Like a Dragon.
Yeah.
Probably to date, the best way to play Yakuza. I love Yakuza 0. I do a lot. Very fun game, but it's very button mashing-y. It's a little tiresome at some parts because there's a lot of enemies at some parts, and it's very challenging.
Yeah.
And mashing those buttons just woof.
Yeah, there are some people who argue that Yakuza is a really technical game when you play it on a certain level, and I don't know if I agree. As much as I know a lot of people like how rewarding some of that combat is in the other games, I also just like, I don't know though. Like, is it
I know
really?
There's moves that you unlock, and like there is it. I'm like in the middle, right, where I'm like, it is rewarding. The like live combat, right? The real time combat is pretty fun.
Certainly it feels tense parts, and it feels very in the moment.
It's just at some parts you're like, okay, X. Okay, I have enough meat, or grab Y, or because you have to do the heat moves to do a lot of damage, and like it's not super big brain. It's just kind of like, okay, I gotta match this till this meter fills up, which could be argued about a fighting game, except that there's at least inputs and another person.
Yeah.
Whereas Yakuza, you can just kind of hold the block button, X.
Yeah.
B, Y. Like it's not on the level of like Devil May Cry or Bayonetta. I would even argue that it's a little worse than Nier Automata, even though Nier Automata's combat is very like basic.
Yeah.
Which is not a problem with Nier Automata. It's very satisfying combat, but it is kind of just, this is how you play the game.
I feel like the gameplay and fighting and like the combat in Nier is a big part of the game, but part of it to me is like, it's not that I find the game is padded, but the fighting is the padding in between just incredible moments within the narrative.
Yes, of course.
Like it's such a good story, and it has to have fighting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of where Yakuza 7 is perfect, because it's ATB2 inspired, right? So like your characters are kind of moving around, and there's some moves that will hit multiple characters. So you can kind of like be like, oh, this character has been moving back and forth here. I'll just wait for them to move back, and then I'll pop this attack, and I'll hit both of them, which they're both weak to, which will kill them, instead of just hitting this one character and then having to move over to, like, it lets you think about what you're going to be doing.
Yeah.
And there are things that happen in the environment that affect how you're like fighting.
Yeah.
Right? It's very well done, and
I feel like Yakuza
is probably my
on
favorite way
on
to
its
play
way to being
Yakuza.
a JRPG. Like it's what they've kind of been working the series towards, honestly.
You know why they went with this route, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's because it was an April Fool's joke. They released like the original Ichiban Kasuga trailer, and everyone was like, fuck yeah, and they were like, oh, fuck it, let's go for it.
Yeah,
let's see what happens. And it's the best way to play Yakuza. I would be fucking baffled if they went back to a real-time combat system.
I think Ryoga Gotoku, like, there's obviously some kinks for them to work out in like their battle system design overall.
Oh, definitely.
Because they're very green when it comes to developing a turn-based combat system.
I think the only problem I have with Yakuza 7 right now is that, like, if you're having a battle a little bit further than the enemy spawn point, you have to have that battle like 3 times before you get past that spawn point. Because you're not in the safe area where the spawn doesn't happen.
Yes. Okay.
So they keep spawning in. Like, I think I talked about it on an earlier episode where I was like, oh, there's this one alleyway where I had to fight the same group of, like, it was different people every time, but it was just like battle.
And this isn't necessarily
like,
something that's a problem in every RPG. It's just like,
no, yeah,
it's Ryoga Gotoku need to work on
ironing out
the kinks in this game. But I feel like they also have like a crazy rate of turnaround in terms of like when they put out their next game. So I wouldn't be surprised if like the next Yakuza game's already like midway through development and it's probably also an RPG.
Yeah.
I really want to see what they do. Also, just I think it's a really important game for the series in terms of the West, because it's the first game to really get a proper full English dub since the first game. And it's a really good dub. It sets a super high bar for quality dubbing in Japanese games.
It is an amazing dub.
It's really great.
The voice actors they got for everyone are fucking perfect.
I still fucking can't believe they got George Takei. And that he's turning in, like, in my opinion, one of his career best performances.
Oh yeah, no,
really, 100%. really great, and so full of
right
pathos.
Off the bat too.
Yeah, really, like and you know, Ichi is such a great protagonist. He's very likable. Nanba and the other party members that you acquire over the course of the game, a lot of them are like, they feel very fleshed out. The fact that the game actually even has a character like Nanba in it, it's pretty impressive that, like, you know, the game doesn't really punch down. There's not a lot of jokes at the expense of the homeless in this. There's maybe one or two where they're like, look at that guy, he's kind of funky looking.
Yeah, there's a couple, but I mean, most of them are not even the main characters doing it.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's bad people, like, pointing and laughing and treating homeless people like shit. And it doesn't
Ichiban
feel like it's framed
what the
for
fuck
the
is wrong
audience's
with
enjoyment.
You? Yeah.
Yeah. It's I don't know, it's pretty interesting to see a Japanese game address like social issues within Japan so directly, because I feel like a lot of the time, not that like Japanese games aren't political or are incapable of being political, or that Japanese devs aren't, more so that like the whole don't rock the boat mentality in Japan often means that like when you set a game in Japan, you maybe try not to lampshade the social.
Well, I mean, that's a thing that Yakuza's been doing. There's some things that happen in the Yakuza series that I'm like,
yeah.
Like there's a whole thing where it's like the Chinamen, and you're like, oh god, here we go. Okay. I don't know about this. Or there's the side quest in Yakuza 0 where it's like, oh, this girl's selling her panties, and you're like, what's wrong with being a pervert, blah, 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 and then the girl almost gets stabbed by some fucking crazy dude, and you're like, well, yeah, this is just kind of what happens if you're going to be selling your panties, maybe don't do that, and it's like,
that's kind of,
yeah,
yeah, I mean, they're first and foremost, and I think even the dev team over at Ryoga Gotoku have said this, games for men in their 30s, basically.
Yeah,
like that's their target demographic, and it's been their target demographic. That's
over in the West, though.
No, in Japan.
No, you've got that factoid messed up.
Oh, it's
because
the opposite.
in Japan, it's mostly like girls who love the Yakuza series.
Oh, really?
Whereas when they come over and do things in the West, it is like buff ass dudes.
Okay.
Like super dude
That's
bros.
Really interesting. Okay, well, I did get that mixed up then. That's certainly the opposite of my impression.
Unless I also got that mixed up. Hold on, I'm going to
Maybe.
Google this real quick while we move on, but I'm pretty sure that's what I remember.
Or maybe even though there's... You know what? I think maybe it's something in between. I'm pretty sure it's like there's a lot of female fans in Japan, but the studio doesn't make the games for them.
Yeah,
something like that. Like,
yeah, I think
we target the games towards a male
but for some
demographic.
reason in Japan it's all like
it's women who love it the most.
It's a large majority of women,
but they certainly
and
do
then we
feel
come over
like,
to the West,
like games that are made by men for men, which is not to say women can't, don't, and won't enjoy and play them, but more so like they come from a very male perspective.
Yes.
And so they're a little limited in some places towards their, their views of
women.
Well, I
mean, Yakuza 7 is taking it in a direction that I was kind of surprised in, because it kind of starts off and you're like, oh, we're gonna be doing Soapland stuff. This,
but then like they
might
they
not
go,
be
they
as
go
tasteful, and then
a very long
they go
way
a
to
very
humanize the people who are involved
a
in the
super
Soapland
respectful way
business.
about it. Especially like your main character was raised
raised
Soapland.
effectively by a group of sex workers in a Soapland.
Yeah, and you're just like, all right, this is cool. I can get behind this.
And other characters, mock Ichiban for that, and other characters talk shit about it. But Ichi himself is like, I think, a credit to the credit, and to the fact that it doesn't matter who your parents are, what they do. If your mother is a sex worker, if your mothers plural are sex workers,
and like that's the thing too,
you
is
can still turn out to be a person like Ichiban who is like very moral and righteous, and thinks of himself as like a Dragon Quest hero.
Yeah, and like where I am in the story right now is it's still been mostly his friends who are just kind of like, haha, Soapland, whatever, and it's just kind of a passing like friendly roast. It's never seemed insulting. It's just kind of been like,
like the game is certainly, I think, very empathetic and sympathetic towards the plight of multiple kind of like marginalized
minority
groups of people within Japan, which is nice. But no, that's a great game. And I can't wait to see like where it goes for you, because I know how it ends, and I think it's great. I can't wait to see how you feel about it too.
I've heard a lot of people say it's very good.
Yeah. I guess we can do a lightning round for 3, just good music that I listened to this year. I wrote down 5 artists whose albums were like in the top, not, top 10 or whatever of stuff that I was listening to this year.
Yeah.
I listened to a lot of fucking backwash. Why? Because Ashanti kicks ass. Her music is fucking great.
kick ass.
Yeah, her music is awesome. She is a very funny and cool person. And, if you wanted to listen to some fucking crazy ass hip hop, it just sounds fucking amazing. Now I guess we can say Polaris Prize winning artist on top of that,
artist, yes,
which is
and
nuts.
like
I think it's maybe the least commercial album they've ever selected for a Polaris Prize, because it's literally available for free on Bandcamp. You have no excuse not to listen to it.
And it is a good album. I blasted it today at work for most of the day while watching Marvel vs. Capcom 2.
It's so fucking heavy. It's so heavy.
If you're not into her music, she's probably one of the better shit posters on Twitter, so at least you can follow her for that.
Exactly. But you should like her music anyway, because it kicks ass.
I wouldn't believe that you wouldn't. But if ever you don't, she's still a very good shit poster.
But Backwash is awesome. Another great female artist that I really, really just completely fell in love with this year or last year, I guess, is Rina Sawayama. I was kind of late to the Rina Sawayama train. I followed her on social media and stuff because she has all these great looks, and I remember watching an interview with her where she was talking about how she loved Final Fantasy, and how her love of JRPG aesthetics from the 90s informed not just the sounds that she puts in her music, but just her looks in general, and defining a lot of her ideology in stuff. And I'm like, okay, that's really cool. I relate to that very heavily. But then I listened to her album Sawayama that came out in 2020, and I threw on the single that I heard about called Shut the Fuck Up, and I decided I have to listen to everything she's ever put out. So I listened to Rina, her other album that had come out. I listened to some of her stuff that had come out as singles, like her EP. Rina Sawayama, amazing. Japanese-British singer. Her aesthetic is incredible. Listen to that song, Shut the Fuck Up. It's just like a crazy-ass nu metal pop song. The heaviest, just the heaviest fucking riff I've ever heard in a pop song, probably. It's really, really great. And it's so cathartic, and her lyrical content is wonderful. That entire song is about how talked down to she feels by, white people and by patriarchal society in general, but specifically, white men. And the video is, directly about her going on a date with a guy, and he's just, talking over her. And, just wanting to tell somebody who's to shut the fuck up,
Yeah.
And who do you think you are, getting behaving that way towards other people? And it's just such It's so good. It's such a crunchy song. It's fucking cool. That whole album, Sawayama, is amazing. There's stuff on there that sounds like it could have been on a Britney Spears album, and there's stuff on there that sounds like it could have been on, like, fucking, I don't know, like I guess almost like a, what do you call them? Chibomato album.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, like there's stuff on there that's very, like, kind of post New Millennium alternative rock. There's stuff on there that's really dancey and kind of post disco-y. There's stuff that just sounds like Britney Spears straight up, which is dope. Like, just really, really great pop music. So many cool aesthetics and beautiful music videos to go with the album. Highly recommend that. I listened to Kelmiko. Do you know who Kelmiko are?
No.
Japanese rap duo. They're really, really great. They put out an album in 2020 called Maze, and it's awesome. You might have heard the song Easy Breezy. It was the theme song to Aizaken, like the anime Aizaken, Keep Your Hands Off of Aizaken, which is a really, really great anime that I watched this year too, I guess. But they're just a great rap duo. Their music is really cool. It sounds really bright, like their beats are super bright and fun, very funky, with lots of great kind of bass samples and great guitar samples. But their rhymes are killer. Like, the cadences in which they rap are awesome, and they sound so fucking great, and their music is just like, it's good pump up music. But then they also have really great lazy songs too that are just very chill and vibey, with like these nice watery beats that are so nice. I don't know, Kelmiko are a great rap duo, and Maze is such a cool album. I was turning up to that shit when I was like on my way to work, trying not to dance in like the fucking street and look like an idiot. But they're really, really great, and their music sounds cool, and they are cool. The videos for their songs are cool. They are funny, and they're great. So yeah, they're cool. One of my favorite bands ever, who have only released 3 albums, released their 3rd album last year, and it was called Inlet, and it was by a band called Hum. And if you do not know who Hum are, they were a band that was kind of around in the late 90s, early 2000s. They put out an album called You Prefer an Astronaut, and then they put out a second album a couple of years later. New metal-ish, alternative metal, very spacey, like a space rock kind of influence to them too. But they're mostly known, I think, for their song Stars, which is on You'd Prefer an Astronaut, their first album, which is a really, really great like pop metal song that sounds fucking awesome, and it's maybe one of the best like melodies of any pop song I've ever heard. But they put out their 3rd album this year. It was called Inlet. It was like, it's literally been 20 years since they put out their last album, pretty much.
Okay.
And it was really, really good. It's crunchy. It's very shoegazy. It kind of sounds also like modern day Deftones. Like the most recent Deftones album, Ohms, sounded also just kind of a lot like Hum's new album, Inlet. And that's not, I think, unintentional, because one of the biggest influences on Deftones was Hum. So, like, it's not a huge surprise, I think, that like there's a little bit of like crossover in terms of what their sounds evolved into over time. But I really, really liked Inlet. I thought it was great. Check that album out on Bandcamp. It's on also streaming services. One more album I want to hit you with before I move past this music lightning round, unless you have a few that you want to add in, because I know you probably want to talk about Peggy, because you've been listening to Peggy so fucking much.
Yeah, that's basically the only one I was going to talk about.
But Biba Doobie, she is a singer-songwriter from London. She is Filipina, and her music sounds like the soundtrack to a late 90s like dejected teen movie. It's really, really good. She put out an album this year called Care, the album is called Fake It Flowers, which is a great album title, by the way. And it looks like a YA novel cover, which I think suits the aesthetic perfectly.
Amazing.
But the sound, like I said, crunchy alternative rock. The lead single is called Care, and if you want to get a good feel for what her sound on that album is, just give it a listen. But she's also a very talented singer-songwriter. She writes all her own music. She just plays mean guitar. Like, she sounds great. And I first heard about her because she did a split EP with Jay Som, another Filipino artist, but she's American, that I really admire. She's kind of like a shoegazy, dream poppy, Pixies, Breeders-ish girl who breaks, that kind of 90s alternative rock style. But Biba Doobie did a split EP with her, and I really, really liked it. And then I checked out her other stuff on Bandcamp, and it was all really, really good. She writes great acoustic stuff just as much as she writes great kind of crunchy electric rock ballads. But Fake It Flowers was a really, really good album, and Care is a killer single. So if you want to go get a feel for what she's like, it's like, I don't know, what would I call it? I think dejected teen 90s movie soundtrack is like the perfect descriptor for her music. It's riffy, but it's poppy. It's got like a lot of really beautiful kind of melodic guitar work in it, but it's kind of screechy and it sounds a little unpolished, and the mixing is a little like unprofessional, which I appreciate. So it sounds a little dirty, a little grungy, and it's a really great record. You know what? It sounds like something that would have played in a Daria episode.
Oh, cool.
It's a really nice kind of MTV alternative
I can get
rock
behind that.
core. It's very good. But that album in particular, Fake It Flowers, is a great new album, so I would recommend you give that a listen. Let's hear about JPEG Mafia. Out. Tell me about JPEG Mafia.
JPEG Mafia. All right, just to get it out of the way, so we can get a clear number on here, because this isn't even counting like YouTube streams or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Hold on, let me find it. JPEG Mafia is basically the only artist I'm going to talk about for this year, because JPEG Mafia got me through this year, and you're about to find out why when I tell you how many minutes I've listened to of JPEG Mafia. For the year 2020, I listened to 22,477 minutes of JPEG Mafia's music.
Holy shit.
Which is about 0.42% of a year, which means I guess like 4%, 5-ish, if we're rounding up.
Wow.
Like 5% of a year, if I'm doing the math right, but I don't know. I was in their top 0.001% listeners. I may have gone a little overboard with the Peggy this year, but I will blame Peggy on making such good music that I like a lot. If you do not know JPEG Mafia, give him a listen.
Yeah,
is basically all I'm gonna say. I recommend the Jesus Forgive Me, I Am a Thought album. It's probably one of my favorite ones, but that's not to say that Veteran and Black Ben Carson, even though Black Ben Carson recently on Spotify got like a couple of songs scrubbed, and now it's just the instrumentals. Yeah, it's just the instrumentals now, which is really weird.
What happened with that?
I don't know. I haven't looked into it, but I was thinking about doing it today.
That's very interesting.
After this, because I'm not sure why that happened.
That's
But Black Stacey Dash is not there. Black Ben Carson's not there.
Maybe it was something to do with like using a person's name in the title or something. People
and like
just
having
like
the song
Lawsuit No Jutsu.
Yeah, Black Steve Austin wasn't there.
Okay.
Yeah, there's like a couple that just kind of get popped.
That stinks.
I'm like, that sucks, because Black Stacey Dash was a very good song. But
that
like,
whole album is fucking awesome.
Peggy doesn't have a bad song.
No, he's literally he hasn't had a bad he's like Denzel Curry. He hasn't put out a bad project yet.
Yeah,
and I kind of am starting to think he won't. Same thing with like Thundercat. Like he just has not put out.
Especially even with all his singles that he released in 2020 that were very, very different from all of his other work. They're more, I don't want to say poppy, but like.
I think they definitely they're more like mainstream.
They're softer. Yeah, they're more mellow. They're less harsh noise.
Yeah,
and more...
the beats are a lot less dissonant. But I kind of like the punky dissonance of his music.
Yeah, because his earlier stuff is very like his beats are just fucking ADHD.
They're crazy.
Essentially,
yeah.
His music is just what does it feel like to have ADHD? And you're like, oh, cool.
So everything is a hyper complex sequence of controlled chaos.
Yes. It doesn't make sense to you, but it does make sense.
Yeah, his music is really incredible. He's
and
just
like
one of those great
I think
MCs.
that's why I loved it so much too. Is just like between the super chaotic beats and like just the contents of the lyrics, which often come down to like you don't know me. It's just, like you just don't.
Yeah.
And like a bunch of other fucking there's so much I could say about JPEG Mafia, but I think I will just say the number of minutes that I streamed, which I did earlier, which was 22,477.
And it should give you a good idea of why, you know, how much JPEG Mafia will occupy your mind once you get into his music.
Yes, if you have a hyperfixation like me for music,
he will overtake your streams. That's for sure.
Yes, I mean, because my top 5 for 2020 or JPEG Mafia, obviously at a staggering number 1.
Yeah.
There was Show Me the Body, which I've talked about, I think, in extent to
one of my favorite live bands I've ever seen. They're so fucking crazy live.
My favorite live band that I've ever seen, hands down.
They're amazing.
There was also Backwash, of course, Denzel Curry, and Horror, which is another band that I cannot push hard enough. Horror is a beautiful, chaotic mess of beautiful punk.
They're so good.
So fucking good. I cannot.
They're fucking brutal. Like
the Chris Donner song, I was just like, oh fuck yeah, we're going in.
Yeah. We don't call ourselves GamePunx for no reason, by the way.
No, exactly. If you are offended, we don't want you here.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go pee before we move on to the next
yeah.
point. And I'll be right back. Oh god. All right, I have returned.
But yeah, I guess I wrote TV because I did watch a lot of TV this year, because what else are you going to do when you were like me in lockdown with no job for a lot of time? When I wasn't playing video games, I was watching TV. There was certainly a lot of TV worth watching this year, at least, but I found most of my comfort in revisiting, you know, old TV that made me very happy and smiley and feel nice. I wrote down on the list Shonen Anime Hell, because I pretty much threw myself headfirst into rewatching 3 of my favorite shonen series, starting with Yu Yu Hakusho, up through the Dark Tournament arc, because that's kind of the taster that I wanted, into Hunter x Hunter, which I'm about midway through. I'm just about to hit the Chimera Ant arc. And now, ever since the end of the year, and kind of helped me power through those last shitty months, we're watching Naruto. I've got a great Kai cut of Naruto that cuts the anime straight to the manga.
Fillers.
Yeah, cuts out all the filler. And, you know, it's nice when you're not sitting around chewing the fat of that series, because a lot of the filler in the TV show sucks, and the pacing is brutally,
the fat is why I fell off.
Slow. So it's a really great cut. We're enjoying it. It's like watching a movie every night. Yep, that'll do it to you. So yeah, Shonen Anime Hell. Putting myself through Shonen Anime Hell has been very fulfilling and rewarding, because an interesting thing about watching Yu Yu Hakusho and Hunter x Hunter and then watching Naruto is recognizing how much Kishimoto was kind of looking over at Yoshihiro Togashi and was just like, you know, mind if I copy your homework a little bit? Don't make it too obvious. Okay. There's a lot of stuff in early Naruto, and even up to where I am now in Shippuden, that takes a lot of direct inspiration, and pretty naked inspiration at that, from Yu Yu Hakusho and Hunter x Hunter even more so. Like, the way that chakra works is none too dissimilar from how the Nen works in Hunter x Hunter. Chakra kind of feels like Nen with less steps. Okay. But the power systems are very, very similar, and seeing like Kishimoto gradually kind of grow and world build as he writes reminds me a lot of the way of how Hunter x Hunter did it. Like, it helps that both Hunter x Hunter and Naruto, like, these main characters that they've written, Gon and Naruto, not that they're fish out of water characters, but they're naive characters that don't have a very grand perspective and don't really understand a lot about the world. So they're the perfect characters to exposit to. And so naturally, you, the audience, learn a lot about the world as they learn about it. Like, whenever Naruto's like, what the hell is chakra? And everybody's just like, Naruto, how the fuck do you not know what chakra is? And then Kakashi's like, okay, I guess we're going to explain chakra now. So, it helps to have some narrative justification, and the fact that the characters are just kind of dumb, it makes it work. But also, Gon and Naruto, very similarly, make friends very easily, and most people who meet them like them. So, it's an interesting experience just kind of reading the parallels between the two series. And I also kind of gonna have the opportunity to sit down and watch a bunch of old comedy shows that I've really, kind of just haven't watched in a while. I rewatched all of Mission Hill at the beginning of 2020, and that was really great because I got to introduce it to my partner, and he'd never watched it, and that is, without a doubt, like top 5 animated shows for me ever. It's really, really great. It's written by Josh Weinstein and Bill Oakley, who are like the showrunners of the best seasons of The Simpsons, in my opinion, which is, seasons 5, 6. But their era of Simpsons and their episodes of Simpsons are by far like way my favorite era of that show, and definitely the era that gets like memed the most on the internet, which should kind of tell you about the way that Mission Hill is written. Feels very similar to that era of Simpsons. It's got really funny characters and kind of outlandish plots, but what grounds them all together is that it's like a show about 20-somethings living, together in like a bit of a flophousey kind of situation, and just going with the flow and kind of doing shit that life leads them to, and going and having sex with people that you've just met, and having parties and getting drunk with your buddies, and just kind of living through your 20s. And it feels really like, I don't know, it still feels relatable, which is nuts because it's a show that was starting and ending production in like 1999, 2000. The fact that it still feels relevant, I think, is a testament to how like generationally, like, regardless of, if your experiences are a little different, it all kind of feels the same. And, it's definitely a show that, like, whether, I think, intentionally or unintentionally, is kind of like a show about Gen X / older millennials versus the younger generation of millennials. Because, like, the main character, Andy, would be, like, really late Gen X or a really early millennial. And then his younger brother, Kevin, who's the secondary main character of the show, he's closer to, like, the younger area of old millennial or new millennial. So there's like this interesting balance between these characters where it's like you see how Andy was the kid that was like a latchkey kid and his parents didn't really parent him super hard. And so Kevin was the kid that got parented hard, but he was also the kid who was like, because he was parented in a certain way, he came out differently. And there's this age gap between the two siblings, and an age gap that defines how they were parented by the same parents, that I think to anybody who has a younger sibling might feel even just a little bit relatable still, because you definitely observe, like, when you're the first kid, what you do and what you can't do is really different from what your younger sibling can and can't do, because
1,000%.
because your parents were kind of, they were trying out. They were figuring out what the fuck they were doing, right? Yeah. It's not easy to be a parent, and it's not easy to learn how to parent your kid and to know how to parent your kid. So, they try stuff on you, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And then the stuff that worked, they try on your younger sibling, and then they also try other things. But it changes, and I think that really defines the relationship between the two characters, because it's about Andy being forced to have Kevin move in with him, but Kevin being totally a kid who I think would be like super into Ben Shapiro if he was alive now. Like if he was 17 years old now, he'd be like one of those kids who like watches like compilations of SJWs getting owned by Facts and Logic. Like one of those kids.
And then those videos just never actually go to anything.
No, exactly. Like he'd be like a young, totally like young, like conservative. Like I don't know if he'd be necessarily like a Trump kid, but he'd definitely be like one of those like, that doesn't seem very logical. You seem to be very emotional. Why don't you one of those guys? Yeah. Definitely a Shapiro head, I think, for sure. So it's like the relationship between a kid who is kind of like that and an older brother who's like a guy who wants to be a comic artist and kind of doesn't really have career aspirations, beyond that. So he's working hard towards doing that. But, he went to like a shitty university, like not a good quote unquote university. And, his university education got him a job selling waterbeds at a waterbed emporium. So I don't know. I feel like it's an interesting show about like siblings from different generations growing up together and defining how they're similar and how they're different from one another in terms of how they operate. It's very fun and cute. It also has really good queer rep for a show made in 1999. It has two really great gay characters named Gus and Wally, who are like the neighbors. And the final episode of the show, or what would I guess be the final episode of the show, because it didn't get to go on past one season. It didn't even get to do its full season order, which sucks. Is a really touching story about how those two characters fell in love. And it's both like a love letter to like 1950s schlocky B movies. Not even B movies, Z movies, like Ed Wood type shit, and also like a really touching love story about how two men like found each other, in an environment that maybe they couldn't continue their careers, but they always remained with each other and they were always in love despite everything. And it's a very sweet love story that every time I watch it, it always chokes me up. And it's also kind of about Kevin learning to not be as much of a prude, because he goes to see his first like X-rated movie, but it's Midnight Cowboy. So, it's an art movie. It's a drama. It's not a nudie film. Like he thinks he's accidentally snuck into an X-rated porno basically, but what he watches instead is just like a classic Oscar award-winning movie, right? But so it's an interesting movie about cinema too, and finding love with somebody through a mutual interest or through meeting in an interesting way. Really, really beautiful episode of a beautiful show. So yeah, watching Mission Hill at the beginning of the year was really like a nice way to kind of open up my lockdown, and it didn't go so well down the road, but at least it started off pretty good. So who knows? But yeah, it was a good year for TV for me. What about you?
I didn't really watch anything new, I don't think. I mean, I kind of started The Mandalorian, but I'm putting that off because I'm still very bitter about the
Star Wars wound is open and it has been salted.
Yeah, we watched. I think we watched an episode and a half, me and my partner, and I was like, it's too fresh. I don't care.
Fresh, eh?
I'm
That's
not getting
fair.
in. I don't think it's bad.
No, it's
I'm just
not,
like,
yeah.
I'm watching The Mandalorian and being upset over
it. It doesn't quite feel like a palate cleanser yet.
Yes,
because the palate is still.
We'll talk about that next week.
Yeah, okay, for sure.
On a regular episode, because I have a lot of things to say about that new trilogy.
That's cool.
But
we will talk about that.
We started that, but I can't get too into it. And I started Twin Peaks literally today on David Lynch's birthday, which I think I would pass that off as coincidence if it was anyone but David Lynch. But I think David Lynch invaded my body, and he did it on purpose.
Now you're going to sit down and enjoy my TV show Twin Peaks.
You've been putting this off for years, Ben Duguay. So sit the fuck down and watch this fucking pilot episode.
This is a great television show for you to enjoy.
It is. It's
a very, very good show.
We just watched the pilot, which is an hour and a half. It's a very long episode.
It's a very filmic pilot. It definitely feels like a TV movie.
Shit. Cinematography, fucking sound design, acting, everything is top bar, and I'm like, yes, this is good. I'm in. Yeah. So that will be my next couple of weeks. Is just all right. So this week on Twin Peaks,
if you're anything like my friend Devin, who just like watched Twin Peaks, soon you'll be changing like your Twitter header to like Ben loves Twin Peaks. Like,
probably
it's
we'll see.
Twin Peaks is one of my favorite TV shows ever, and I can't wait to talk about it more with you because I love Twin Peaks so much.
Nobody talked to me about Twin Peaks.
No.
I already know too much.
It's
like I've had a couple of things. That's the thing. I've had a couple of things that I know will be spoilers, but I don't know what they are yet because it's fucking David Lynch, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, honestly, even if you did, you probably wouldn't get it anyway. Because
exactly.
It's still David Lynch.
It's fucking David Lynch. And you're just like, yes, good.
Yeah. Twin Peaks is really about the experience.
The two only shows that I really want to talk about, and it's going to be a fucking throwback.
All right. Hit me with
and one of them you mentioned earlier is The Simpsons. I've been going through The Simpsons again. I think we're up to season 3 or 4 now.
Yeah, it's crazy how many of those early episodes are just total fucking bangers.
And they're baked into my brain. Like, I was quoting them as I was watching them with my partner, and she would just look over at me and be like,
"Are you reading off a script? Like,
what the fuck are you doing?" And I was like, shh, please. But yeah, we're going through that again. It's very fun. We basically, like, every time I sleep over at her house or whatever, we watch a couple episodes in the morning before I go to work, or like watch a couple episodes when we're like, what do we watch? I don't know.
Let's watch The Simpsons.
Is there a new episode of RuPaul? No. Okay, fucking Simpsons. Who cares?
Hell yeah.
But now I think that might get overthrown by Twin Peaks. Because this morning I was like, we're watching Twin Peaks. And she was like, okay.
I feel like you can balance that shit out a little bit. If you especially because the rest of the show isn't as long as, you know.
Yeah, because they're only 40
the feature-length pilot.
Yeah, which was totally worth it. It was a very satisfying
It's
pilot.
a great pilot.
It's very good.
It's one of the I think, in my opinion, one of the best live action TV pilots of all time. Like it totally 100% gets
immediately
you like,
in.
If you are not into it, you will at least know that you're not into it. But if you watch that pilot, you're like, okay, well, this is what you're going to be getting for the next, you know, basically 20 years of television. So
yeah, and I mean, my favorite thing too about the pilot is like, there's already like, okay, this is a David Lynch thing. I have to pay attention to that. That was super weird. I don't know why that character or person or whatever did that thing. I'm paying attention to that, and I will try to remember this in a season and a half when it is explained. Type thing, right?
When it's not explained.
or when it's explained in the movie.
Yes, in Fire.
And not explained, but like
elaborated upon.
That's why that happened, maybe.
Yeah.
In season 1, episode 1.
That's
like,
yeah,
Jesus.
That's pretty much the vibe of Twin Peaks.
Yeah, I'm just kind of like, all right, I know what to look for, but I don't know what I'm looking for. So it's super fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, so there was The Simpsons, going through that. Amazing. Early season's really good. We're still early season.
So good.
So I plan to go through the rough times too. I really do.
I commend you. Whenever I watch The Simpsons, I stop at season 13. That is where I draw the line.
That's where most people do.
Yeah.
But I'm going to push on and invert those numbers. It's kind of for a project that I'm working on too. It's a little bit of homework.
It's crazy to think there have been more years of bad Simpsons than there have been of good Simpsons.
I don't want to talk about it yet.
Just saying.
I know.
Before you dedicate yourself to that task, just remember,
I know.
there have been more years of bad Simpsons than good Simpsons. You are in for
and this
a ride.
project, by the way, is it's a multi-year thing. Don't look forward to this.
No, this is like reading One Piece. Like
this is the plan I have for this is going to be in at least like 2-3 years.
That sounds about right.
If that. But there is a thing going on. There's a reason for this. The other thing I watched, and I'm not sure what hooked me on this, but it was Kenny versus Spenny.
Hell yeah! I've watched a bunch of this shit. I've watched a bunch of it around the beginning of pandemic too.
Yeah, all 5 seasons.
That is a fucking crazy show.
Seen Kenny Hotz's ass more times than
you've probably seen your own ass at this point.
Anyone else's ass, actually.
It's that show is.
It is a time capsule. It is a fucking time capsule.
It is the most early 2000s ass show ever fucking made.
It was when TV was still kind of the wild, wild west.
Yeah,
I think I posted a tweet about it earlier this week, actually, where I was like, because I just recently got into season 5, and I was like, I am baffled that this show went as long as it did with some of the shit that happens in this show.
It is kind of shocking.
Literal shit.
Yeah. It's a lot more like wow naughty TV than pretty much any other live action show.
And it was prime time
watched.
right before the news.
Yeah, like this is shit that aired in syndication on Showcase. And
I watched this as like a 13-year-old
sometimes throughout the day. Yeah, same here. I was
to give you a premise of the show, it is reruns. It is two friends who are living in a house that the studio has rented or bought or whatever.
I guess rented for them in Toronto, yeah.
Yeah, per week. I guess not really week, because usually the challenges are 3 days, but they have challenges that they have to complete. Yes, they have to commit to a challenge, and whoever loses has to do a humiliation at the end. Usually what happens is Kenny Hotz, being Kenny Hotz, will find some loophole or just straight up cheat.
Yeah, and exploit the rules and force
and exploit
Spencer
the rules
to
and make Spenny feel like shit and make him do a humiliation at the end.
Yeah.
And the first couple of episodes, you're like, wow, Kenny is a fucking piece of shit. But then Spenny continues to be Spenny. And you kind of are like, I kind of want to see Kenny bully Spenny.
Yeah, because he's the sort of person who...
He's just such a moralistic...
I should say his persona is, because I don't know if it's really what he's like. But yeah, he is such like a moralistic dude who like doesn't really seem to learn from his mistakes.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
Like 5 seasons in, he's still like, I'm following the rules. Yeah, I'm going to be the bigger man.
He's playing it like it's episode 1, but he's playing this game with a dude who, for the rules... to just do not apply for him.
Yeah. And like, I don't know, I've watched interviews and I think that's actually how they both are for real.
Holy
like
shit.
For real. Like both of them are these weird caricatures. I don't know if the show molded them into being that.
Maybe.
Because it's kind of a thing that happens, right? Like
maybe you just live so long in the persona it becomes you.
Yeah,
ironically.
If you stare into the persona long enough, whatever.
The persona looks back into you.
But that's it. Like the first couple of episodes, you're like, "Wow, Kenny Hotz. I don't know about." And then you're just like, "Yeah, Kenny, fucking get it."
Yeah.
There's a couple of episodes where Spenny does like be smart about shit, but it's like, you got to commit to that, man. And like
some of those challenges, I'm shocked they made it to TV. Quite frankly,
the shitting the pants one is disgusting. I don't know.
Yeah.
Ugh.
That's
a real challenge. I'm not making this up.
The one to me that watching it to this day still makes me cringe and made me cringe even at the time when I was like somebody who was a lot more like willing to just watch and laugh at shit like this was, and it's not even a disgusting poo-poo pee-pee one, which there are many of those, believe me.
Yes.
Is the Who Do Black People Like More one.
I don't remember that one, actually. I think I fell asleep while it was playing, but I need to go back and watch it.
Both of them are such embarrassing white people for like completely different reasons.
Well, I mean, the funniest thing about that is there's a Who Raps Better one.
Oh God.
Kenny says the N-word and still ends up being less racist than Spenny.
Yeah.
And you're like,
similarly for the Who Do Black People Like One More, Kenny literally wears a full KKK hood and cloak, and runs around like areas where there are lots of black people when Spenny is there, just to make Spenny look bad. And Spenny still makes himself look worse by just being the most like slimy, self-involved white dude that like, why would black people like you, dude? Why?
Yeah. And like, I mean, oh God, there's also the
just like the fakest motherfucker.
There's the Who Do Gay People Like Better.
Oh yeah.
And like, you have Kenny who's just pretending to be gay and being like, oh my God, he's putting on this fake voice and like lying, and you're like, but Spenny like kisses the dude that they're both seeing to see who he likes better.
Yeah.
Out of like I'm not gay, but like I want you to like me, so I'm gonna kiss, and it's like Spenny. God, Jesus Christ, man.
Yeah,
it's like that's the thing. You end up rooting for Kenny, who is
by far a worse person, but
is he?
Well, that's the thing. It's like I guess like he's a worse person in like he is a very non-PC dude way.
Yeah, he's edgy as shit. But also, Spenny
like,
is
Spenny
just
is such,
like
he's such like a fucking insufferable liberal asshole.
And like it just everything Spenny does feels so fucking phony.
Yeah,
and just fake.
He's
what was the other one?
It's really he is a super moralistic dude, and not that I find moral people to be bad. I find people like Spenny to be bad.
Yeah. There's the episode where they have to wear gorilla costumes, and Spenny's like, there's only like 700 gorillas left, and then the production manager's like, what are you talking about? They just found like 12,000 of them in the fucking rainforest. And Spenny's like, what? And before that, Spenny's like, it makes me emotional just talking about it, and he's like almost crying, and then the manager's like, what? You're fucking wrong, dude. Did you even
stupid.
Google this shit?
You're stupid.
And then he's like, what?
He talks
like,
out of
oh
his
my
ass
God,
all the fucking time.
It's so bad.
Yeah.
There's
pretty funny.
There's the fucking... God, I think my favorite thing that happens in the show is the who can kiss more girls one.
Oh God.
Because it à la base is super creepy.
Yeah.
But like Kenny just kind of goes around and is like, oh, I'm a gay dude. Or I'm French. I want to give you a kiss on the cheek, whatever. And like just passes it off like that. But then Spenny is running around with a sign that says, I am not crazy. I want a non-sexual kiss on the cheek to win a competition. Just in downtown Toronto. And
Chris
you're like...
Chan holding up a sign that says, looking for a boyfriend, free girl vibes. Like,
yeah, and like... I mean, it's basically that, and then, but the thing is, Spenny's striking out, and just like no one's like paying attention to him. But then this girl who thinks he's cute and wants him to win, like genuinely, like she just likes Spenny, is like, oh hey, I'll help you like get the kisses or whatever, and they like finish the day together, and they're like, oh yeah, that was really fun, whatever. And then Spenny just out of nowhere is like, do you think Kenny hired her to like pretend to be nice to me or whatever, blah blah blah, and then goes and like starts being like, Kenny, what the fuck, who's this girl? And Kenny's like, what the fuck are you talking about? And then he goes to the girl the next day, Spenny does, and is like, oh yeah, so Kenny pay you a lot of fucking money to be nice to me or whatever, just like give up the act, I don't care, like just give it up. And she's like, what the fuck are you talking about, dude? I like you, and like, you know what, fuck it. She's like, give me the shirt back, go fuck yourself, call me in 5 years when you get over yourself. And you're just like, yeah, shit. That's basically like the exact fucking energy that fucking Spenny gives off. And it's just like, that's the thing, like,
yeah, it's such
a weird
moments
show
like these.
Yeah, it's just such a weird show where you're like...
Another one that strikes me as memorable, and I'll never forget just because of how absurd it is there was one that was who could touch the most breasts. And because they don't specify in the challenge that it has to be human breasts.
Yeah, Kenny just goes around grabbing
to like a chicken restaurant and touches all like the chicken
breasts. And then he goes to a sex shop and like touches all the fucking
fake breasts on the walls. And then meanwhile, Spenny has set up like a gross a
fake like a breast cancer
booth,
check,
a groping booth?
And he's like, oh, I'll check, but like still go to a doctor because I'm not a doctor, but thank you. And then he goes to like a club and grabs like some girl's breasts in the car, and then like she's like, oh, my boyfriend's outside though or whatever, and he's like, oh, like we won't tell her or whatever. And then like a fight breaks out, and it's like, we gotta go, man, they're gonna stab us, man. And it's like, yeah, why did you
just touch her like that? So, it is a really absurd show. It's there was a lot of TV like this in the early 2000s. Like somebody posted like a thing on Twitter the other day that was like, just to remind you, like Comedy Central in the early 2000s is the fucking Wild West, and it's insane. And it's like it's shows like The Man Show and stuff like that, which are just like really gross and misogynistic when you look back at them now, and like really nasty, like kind of excuses to like cheaply titillate like stupid male viewers. But stuff like Kenny versus Spenny, it's like too avant-garde and too mean and stupid to feel real sometimes. And
that's the thing, like sometimes you're like, is this a fucking script?
And then when I think back on it, I'm like, oh yeah, that's how I turned out like I am, because I grew up watching reruns of this and Trailer Park Boys. Like
yeah.
And this defined my deeply stupid sense of humor. Like,
I don't remember. Oh god, there's so many episodes too where I was eating sometimes while watching the show, and I was like, I'll have to come back to this episode, because there's like the who can eat more meat episode where everyone just starts fucking throwing up. I mean, because they've eaten, like, Kenny has eaten like 15 pounds of meat, and he's just at his mom's house continuing to eat, and just throws up in the plate, and he's like, Mom, what's for dessert? And you're like, I love you, Kenny.
It just makes me sick, the thought of it. I'm not vegan.
No, it's just...
I do eat meat, but I also kind of disgusted by meat, low-key, a little bit.
Yeah,
like
when
I think about the idea of eating too much of anything makes me sick, but specifically eating too much meat. The thought of it alone, I probably even wouldn't be able to get through that episode.
Fair enough. I feel like I would be more like Kenny in that situation, because they just eat meat so much. God. fucking and there's I don't remember what humiliation it is, like
God,
what
the beef
episode
sweats.
the humiliation it is, but like there's one where Kenny just makes everyone in the crew throw up on Spenny.
God,
And that's just the humiliation.
it's awful.
I think my favorite episode,
That's
though,
awful.
I have to find the specific one. Who can... Okay, go back after this episode and watch Who Can Take More Torture, like the Kenny versus Spenny episode of Who Can Take More Torture, because I think it is Kenny's most, like, perfect... You plan this out amazingly.
Yeah.
Because it's just... The whole episode is him just, like... embarrassing Kenny, embarrassing Spenny after embarrassment after embarrassment after embarrassment. I'm not going to tell you what happens because you should go watch
This
the
is
episode.
what we did before the Eric
like
Andre show Zoomers.
Yeah.
This is what we had.
Go back and watch that episode. Who Can Take More Torture of Kenny versus Spenny? I think it's like season 3 or something.
Oh,
it's
God.
my favorite episode, I think, because at the end, like Kenny loses on purpose because he's just embarrassed Spenny so many times.
Oh, God.
And like
This feels like
Spenny's
a show that even Absol wouldn't have like produced, you know?
Yeah, and
It's
Spenny's
too much
like,
for
okay, you
even
have to do what is it? Fucking improv theater, and Kenny apparently hates improv theater or whatever. And at one point Kenny's just like, I fucking lost the competition on purpose, you idiot. Did you not realize what was happening?
Oh, God.
Like, did you not pay attention to the fact that like all this shit happened? Because so much shit happens in an episode. It's perfect. It's my favorite episode, I think.
It's so funny.
I'm
gonna
Who
have to
Can Take
watch
More
that one.
Torture? Go check that shit out.
sounds
We can
great.
talk about it next week.
Hell,
it's amazing.
yeah, we totally will. I'm gonna watch that one later tonight, actually. I guess number one then. I just kind of wanted to leave number one as a big fucking shout out to like specifically the games that just got me to fucking feel something again.
Yeah,
Because in a year where
shit was
just
rough.
shit was rough, and like that is like the most like simple way I could put that, the most dismissive way I almost could put that.
Yeah,
The way in a
the
year like
most escapist
Yeah.
way.
exactly in a year where shit was rough, and sometimes it took effort to feel anything at all, you know. And if I was feeling something, it was like shit.
Sorry, it's too real.
Yeah, then sometimes, you know, a game comes around or a story or something, but specifically in these games came around that just I felt an emotion that I was like, oh, hello, nice to feel you again. So I'm just gonna roll off a couple games that really got me to feel something this year. Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition. I mean, what can I say about the game? I waxed poetic about it for months on this show, and with good reason. It's an excellent remake, full ground up remake of maybe one of the best and, you know, most worthy of praise and people to play it JRPGs of the last decade. I think that game is really amazing. It's something very special, deeply special. The way that it feels to play, the characters, the way that story concludes is so cathartic. The fact that I got to play a little extra chapter at the end that they put in, you know, was really nice. And just getting to re-experience that story in, like, I think the way that it was always meant to be experienced, because this feels like, even more so than the Wii version, more so than the 3DS version, this really is the definitive edition of the game. This is how I think you will play it and get the most out of it. It touched me. Like it really. I mean, I think I said it like restored my faith in humanity when I played it, just a little bit, because it's about conquering insurmountable odds, and in a year where it felt like shit was stacking on top of you every day, and everything was getting worse and worse by the minute, to experience a story where people struggling against like the most difficult, ridiculous scenario possible succeed. It felt good. It felt really good. So Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition touched me, and it was really beautiful. Animal Crossing, shoutouts to Animal Crossing New Horizons. We all know what that's about. everybody played Animal Crossing. It's the most successful game in the franchise and one of the best-selling games of all time now. And, you know, even if it wasn't for the pandemic, I think it still would have done super good. But the fact that, like, I had my little animal friends to make me feel like I was part of a fucking community for
I think it was
4
very
months
comforting.
where I wasn't
That
talking
game,
to anybody.
Yeah, that game came out in a fucking crucial point, I think.
Yeah.
Might be a stretch a little bit, but I think that Animal Crossing's New Horizons may have genuinely saved some lives.
I wouldn't be surprised. It's like, a really amazing game.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's something about having a little animal, you know, just be your little friends on your little island and making an island just for them. You know, there's something about being given responsibility like that by a game to do your best and to do right by, like, your little community and to make you feel part of something that really, like, just, like,
hits in the feels.
Like,
Stardew did it for me, right? Like,
Yeah.
Stardew this year for me was my Animal Crossing, because I don't have a Switch. I only played when my partner's friend let us borrow her Switch for a time. But that was like, I think
time.
a week. It was like a week.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't I didn't sink my teeth in. I kind of just licked the surface a bit.
Yeah, quite
Like,
still.
it was a salt lick.
You got to see
but
just
Stardew,
how rich an experience something like that would be.
Yeah.
Stardew
But I mean,
is
that's the
your
thing.
game.
I got Stardew. I got that experience out of Stardew personally.
But a game that just makes you feel like you're part of a community was very important in a year where we were just all very disconnected from one another. You know? That's good. Ringo Ishikawa, The Friends of Ringo Ishikawa, is a game that, you know, after buying it years ago and just not playing it, because I'm a fucking idiot, I guess, I sat down and I played it, and it was that was just a good little escapist game. But I think the story it told about, like, the futility of remaining in one place, of kind of not allowing yourself to grow, hit pretty hard.
Of being a air quotes home bum.
Yeah, exactly. It hit pretty hard. Like, the idea of, you know, playing as a character who realistically has probably peaked in high school and will never go anywhere further, but just still being entirely sympathetic to the life that a character like that would lead, and, like, kind of counting down the days to this person's life just totally blowing away in the wind and never coming back to them. It was a pretty human game. Like, I felt those characters, and I felt that world, and I felt the loss. I felt what he was losing. I felt it fleeting. I felt that fleeting moment, you know? Like, I felt it.
Yeah.
I lived it.
Yeah. And, like, what I want to bounce off of this one before we move on to your next one real quick is just, for me, Yakuza 7 kind of was reassuring in an empathetic kind of way, right? Because everyone in that game is, like, late 30s, early 40s.
Yeah.
And I'm going into my early 30s, right? I'm about to hit 30 in, like, a few years.
Yeah.
I'm gonna turn 28 this year, and it's weird. And, like, just having a actual genuine story where Ichiban is, like, 40, and he's having people be like, oh man, you still have so much time to get your shit together, though. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
You're just like, oh god, thank fuck that some kind of form of media that I'm ingesting is acknowledging this, because in most media, especially ones that come from, like, Japan or whatever, anything past 30 is like, you're fucked. You're done. You're over. You hit 30, I talk about this a lot
with my group chat a lot. We're always laughing about how, like, we're like, how old is Kakashi? And it's like, Kakashi is, like, 26 years old.
26.
And I'm just like, you telling me that Kakashi is 26? And then I'm just, like, remembering, and, like, Tales of Vesperia, Raven, the character in your party who's, like, the old man, and everybody calls him old man. Motherfucker's, like, 34.
Yeah, and you're like, what the fuck, man?
Yeah,
come on.
And by 34, he's probably already accomplished more than any other character, and he's still called, like, stupid fucking dumb old man.
Yeah, you
dumb
fucking
idiot,
boomer. You fucking piece of shit.
Garbage old man. Everybody's
God,
like,
please stop.
21-year-old revolutionary Yuri Lowell.
Master Roshi is fucking 29. That's not true.
That's kind of the vibe, though, of a lot of shonen anime and a lot of Japanese storytelling is just like,
I think
you're 30, you're fucking ancient.
Yeah,
Go
and
die,
it's kind of a harmful.
Man.
It's kind of a harmful thing, especially for people who've been ingesting this since they were very young.
Yeah, it's something you
like
internalize.
Us. Yeah, because, like, I remember, like, just being like, oh God, why is this so hard? Shouldn't this just happen now?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And it's like, it's also not even accounting for the fact that like minimum wage for most of our generation is horrible horseshit that hasn't moved since like the 80s, and like inflation and whatever, and people being like, oh, if we raise minimum wage, everything's going to go up. And it's like, it's been going up anyway.
It's going up anyway, so just raise it.
It's not going to stop. How about we help people pay for their shit?
Yep.
Anyway,
a game that like just
not
kind
to
of,
get political on this video game podcast.
There's no politics in games, but a game that helps you kind of recognize the economic reality that you live in as not being, finite and the be all end all of everything.
If you can pay attention to media critically, because a lot of people can't apparently.
Yeah, then like there's something reassuring about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, Ringo Ishikawa, yeah, like I said, capturing somebody's fleeting life, really, really beautiful. Doing that. Yeah, of course, Yakuza 7 does a really good job of kind of doing the opposite.
Well, I mean, because I was going to talk about Yakuza 7 in the section, and kind of for that reason, because like I think that's why it was kind of a comfort game for me this year too, was not only the gameplay loop being fun and like the fact that it's a very good JRPG and a good Yakuza game. It's just like having characters tell a 40-year-old that like, don't worry, man, you got time.
Yeah,
it's fine. I don't have my shit figured out, and I'm older than you. And you're like, oh,
that's cool.
Right. And like acknowledging that like most people are just kind of winging it.
Yeah,
is really fucking cool. Because
I think it's a really reassuring fundamentally thing. True.
Yeah, it's a really reassuring thing that most people need to keep in mind. Like you look at like Lil Nas X, and you're like, where did I go wrong? It's like Lil Nas just got lucky.
He got super lucky. He drew like the lottery
and
of all lotteries.
That's not to say that Lil Nas X is not a super talented individual.
or somebody who didn't work hard to get where they are.
Yeah,
clearly not. It's just like, but what are the when you're like our age and you see somebody who is like younger than you by a not so significant amount,
a critical margin.
Yeah,
I say
Lil
Nas X for me is a critical margin.
5 years even for me is a critical margin. So
yeah, where you're just like it does psychological damage when you find out their age.
I mean, when I'm at work and I read like the author description of a published novel, I look at the back and I'm just like, oh, this person is younger than me.
Yeah,
reading the books on the graphic novel shelf. Oh, Tilly Walden, cartoonist from Texas, is 21 years old. Like,
I don't listen to Billie Eilish, but she turned fucking 18 last year, and I was just like, oh!
Yeah. You feel your age.
Oof.
You feel your age. Yeah. That 10-year, margin of age feels real.
Yeah, I mean, I'm working with people now at the bike shop that are not old enough to buy the legal weed because they're not 21, and they don't even remember 9/11.
Yeah,
the funniest moment in history.
That makes me old. That makes me feel so fucking old. I it's something that I was recently coming to terms with, but the fact that there are people like kids out there who weren't even born when 9/11 happened.
Yeah,
like it's like 9/11 is like a defining moment of my fucking life, and I remember. And I mean,
I made the joke
definitively.
I made the joke at work too, where I was like, "Oh boy, I can't wait to tell my daughter that I used to be able to go outside."
Yeah, straight up.
Because like she's 2 right now, right? So she's not.
She spent basically the latter.
She
half
spent
of this
most
year
of her
indoors.
life.
Yeah.
She spent most of her life like seeing people wearing masks and like.
That's wild.
Yeah, it's nuts. It's crazy.
It's going to change the way a lot of kids see the world,
perceive the world. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but
and like I mean, Wooly touched on it a bit, where because I mean, like Asian culture, of course, is way more like germ aware, right? Like, and I think Wooly in an older Castle Super Beast podcast was like, I remember watching these animes and being like, seeing these friends or people who have like feelings for each other just running up to each other and be like, oh my god, I'm so happy to see you, and stopping like 4 feet away or something and just being like, I'm really glad you're okay, and not like hugging and shit and being like, that's super weird. And now it's like, oh yeah, no, that makes sense.
Yeah. Oh, totally. Yeah.
And like, even if shit does go back to normal after like this year or whatever,
big if
it's not going to be normal, because like there's going to be people like me, who already had agoraphobia, who's gonna like my agoraphobia is already way more extreme now, right?
Yeah,
I'm just kind of like, if someone passes too close to me on the street, I'm like, what? Come on.
Yeah.
Come on.
I went for a walk to the grocery store today to pick up some stuff, and I was like, when people were walking by me, I went onto the street and circled around them.
Yeah, that's it.
I didn't want to walk beside them. It's changed.
Yeah,
it's changed the way that I interact just on a normal day-to-day basis with.
And I think for most people, it will.
Yep. I think non-debatably, just it has changed how we do everything. So, yeah, it's it's crazy. I did have one more game I guess I wanted to talk about. That was Dragon Quest XI. I wanted to talk about it only because I beat it this year. And it was on my mind when I wrote this list because I was thinking about, like, games that once again were just, like, you know, emotionally fulfilling. And I remembered, oh yeah, this is a game that I got so emotionally invested in that when it came for me to make a critical decision within the narrative that, you know, would narratively hurt the main characters a great deal, but also do them a great deal of good, I had to put the game down and stop playing because I felt really, really, really torn over that decision. And I was not ready to regret making it. And that was, just thinking about that got me feeling like, oh yeah. And then the fact that I picked up the game and started playing it again and had to make that critical decision, that was a really strange experience. Mm-hmm. That was really, really fucking weird. Because I was like I said, I was not ready to make a decision that big. But, you know, completing Dragon Quest XI over the last year, I finally beat the final boss. I went through and I just kind of, you know, I finished the game up. But going through that second half of the game, it is an emotional whirlwind. Because something about that game, I think any good RPG should do this, but Dragon Quest has not always been particularly great at it, so it's why 11 really struck me as a special game and maybe the best game in the series. You know, all of these party members, you know, of course they're, you know, the partly stock archetypes, but over the time that you spend with them in the game, they grow past that archetype really hard, which is not something all other Dragon Quest characters do, quite frankly. And spending a lot of time with them like that, it really improved my experience with the game. Like, it's something that Dragon Quest has kind of done in the past too. Like, there's a whole game in the series, Dragon Quest IV, which is explicitly about how important the companions are and how the companions are part of what makes a really, you know, a journey feel really grand and important. Because that whole game's thing is like, oh, you play a little story with each of the, like, party members you will eventually meet before you even play the main game. Pretty crazy idea, right? Like, that's really innovative for the time. That game came out on the Super NES.
It's the SNES, yeah?
Yeah. So that game is like...
What? Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty experimental. And something that they add in to the Dragon Quest XI-S version that's available on Switch, the definitive one with the goods, you know, orchestrated soundtrack and everything, is that in the midpoint of the game, I won't exactly say how you get there, but the party is separated, and you play little individual chapters as those party members going on their own little adventures. And in that span of time, the amount of development that takes place is so crucial to you in, like, the latter half of the game, seeing how far these characters have come and then getting to that point in which you need to make that decision and going, but all of the stuff that I did there, that whole point of the story, like, will not have happened now. All the things that happened to them in their lives, that development is gone. You know, and the returns, like the positive effects of what we're about to do, are really good. Like, it's an unequivocal, like, a really, like, unquestionably good thing to do. But I felt so guilty to leave those characters back to where they were, pretty much at square one. And that hurt me. It made me feel very sad and upset. And a game to do that to me, to rend me so raw like that and scared of making a decision, was like, it was really like I've never felt that way before.
Mm-hmm. And then they don't get like their memories back or anything.
Right?
No.
Like you do end up getting like, you know, the level development and stuff comes back. Like all the levels you grinded out, you're eventually rewarded it back. But the ways in which
feel like shit.
But the ways in which their stories originally kind of ended they hasn't happened anymore. So you need to go back to all the places that they had gone on their little side stories and reestablish and rebuild the relationships that they had built with others.
Okay, because I'm going to loop this around to...
Yeah.
I know I said we weren't going to talk about Rise of Skywalker until next week.
Okay.
But remember how in Rise of Skywalker when they were like, we're going to delete C-3PO's memories, and he's going to be... completely fucking drained of all of his friendships and whatever.
Yeah, and it's just like, here's the backup disc. Sorry, he's back.
Not even just that, but like the 3 people he was there with fucking hated him anyway.
Yeah.
They had known him for like a month, maybe.
And they didn't like him.
Yeah, and they didn't like him. So like there was no stake
It wasn't like he was saying that to Luke. You know, not that I even have a problem with what they did with Luke in that series. I think it was the right narrative decision. More so like...
Yeah, we can talk about that next week.
More so that like... But then why is it that you do that? You can't do that story. You feasibly can't. That decision should have been made with another character.
I mean, that feels like what would be really heavy for the audience. Oh, C-3PO forgot everyone.
Yeah.
And everything.
That's one of those story
backup
beats
disc.
that, like,
backup disc, though.
It makes...
Backup disc. Yeah. Who cares? Backup disc. Don't worry.
It's one of those storytelling beats that only makes sense when you're considering the audience as part of that narrative. And it's like, okay,
but
that's
not
like,
including
that is a valid
the narrative
way to tell a story, but that's not the right way to tell this story.
But it's also including the narrative in the audience.
Yeah. And it is asking a lot of the audience to, like, if they don't have a relationship with C-3PO, to feel bad for this character.
Yes, especially since they presented C-3PO, like, say this is your, like, third Star Wars movie as a child.
Yeah.
Right?
As a basic
C-3PO, screen time, maybe max 15 minutes.
Less
to this point. Yeah, less, but, like, I'm going to be generous and say up to 15 minutes.
And it means
we're gonna
nothing.
Get into this again next week. But yeah, it fucking doesn't mean anything. Whereas this Dragon Quest thing actually has weight to it.
Yeah.
Because it's not just brushed aside.
Nope.
At the end. Not even at the end, like 5 minutes later.
Exactly. Like, it is a significant amount of time between when you reset all the characters' progress and basically work your way back to getting them back to that place again.
Yeah.
Like, you have to go back, too, to, like, the towns where you kind of helped those towns, like, work through a huge issue. You know, you haven't done that anymore. Like, there's stuff that you need to go back and do. Like, the Colosseum town is a good example because it's early enough in the game. But, like, in the Colosseum town, you, like, solve the mystery of, like, what the fuck is happening to, like, the orphans in this town and where they're going and shit. And it turns out, they're being fucking, you know, lost in a giant underground cavern under this Colosseum town that's full of fucking man-eating spiders. And there's a giant fucking man-eating spider there.
My favorite kind of spider.
It's insane. Like, it's crazy shit. But, like, you know, you kill that spider and you're like, oh, good, now the children are safe. And then you go back to the town after resetting shit and you're like, oh, fuck. And
the children aren't safe.
The children are not safe. I gotta save them again. But anyway, yeah, walking back on those characters, like, making the decision to walk back on those characters' lives and you know, hurt them temporarily within the story, and, you know, even though they wouldn't know it, that made me feel like shit. So...
Yeah, and, like, it doesn't have to be, because, like, even in the, like, shoes of the main character, right? The main character would have probably also felt like shit.
Oh yeah.
But it's not hindering to the narrative like the C-3PO thing where it's like, oh, you'll never get your memory. Oh, backup disc. Don't worry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
JK. JK.
And it's also a good example of how using an audience surrogate character makes the decision feel more personal, because it is you making the decision because this character is your avatar in the game. It's a good example of a game using the, you know, a blank slate avatar character like effectively to make your decisions feel like they really matter to these characters, because they, they're looking up to you. You're the luminary. It's not somebody else that's the luminary. You are the luminary. And it's special. Like, the luminary is your character and you roleplay them. So anyway, all of this, you said, Dragon Quest XI made me feel of very complicated feelings, but such hard feelings, and like getting to kind of resolve those feelings and play that story through to the end was like a very fulfilling experience. It's a game that I couldn't recommend enough to people who are like, apprehensive to touch like a JRPG. I think it's a great game to start with because it's so fun and so customizable and so like definitively a great story with a beautiful aesthetic, fun world to explore, lots of treasure, side quests, and just like a great story, a really good story. And one of the few time travel RPGs where the time travel feels like it really fucking matters. Which is important, because fuck Bravely Default. But I guess I will die on that hill. That was I guess 2020 for me. Yeah. It was a good a good year to do shit that you typically wouldn't do, I guess. Like a good year to pour yourself into your work or into something that you are invested in. But it felt good. I mean, personally, it didn't really change much because I think we talked about it a couple of times. It didn't change much to me because I don't really leave my house anyway, because mild agoraphobia, except for shows. The shows was the only thing that was kind of missing this year. There goes your one reach of human connection. Yeah, and that was usually with friends anyway, so whatever. I think games that made me feel alive again during 2020 were mostly fighting games, honestly. Like, I made a couple of friends through like fighting game shit that we would just play fighting games till like fucking 3 a.m. sometimes, and like that was it. Story-driven games was mostly Yakuza 7, like I mentioned earlier, but I don't remember beating any game this year, actually, because I think I just put so much time into, like, Power Rangers, Them's Fighting Herds, Blaze Blue Cross Tag, and, I mean, outside of mechanics and, like, I mean, fucking Unity, there's so many fighting games this year. Like, outside of mechanics, I don't really have anything to say about those games, right? Other than, like, I felt very happy playing them with my friends over the internet sometimes when the when the net code was good. Yeah. That's basically it. I'm very excited for locals to start up again soon, so that I can maybe make like fighting game friends that are in Montreal. Yeah, and I mean, we have a good fighting FGC game group of people here. We're a fighting game city through and through, I think. Yeah, we have DreamHack. Yeah. Well, we had DreamHack every year. But we have a very healthy fighting game scene here. And I think I've talked about the anime fighters scene here, which is called Ultimate Montreal Air Dashers, which the abbreviation is UMAD, which I live for. That's very good. That's really good. But outside of that, I mean, I think Yakuza 7 is the only like story driven game that I've played that made me like feel again, other than like Monster Hunter, because that also was another thing that I was like, oh yeah, but I mean, that's not narrative driven. I don't have anything to say about the narrative of Monster Hunter. The narrative of Monster Hunter is these monsters are fucking up the ecosystem, let's kill them. Yep. Oh god, we killed them, the ecosystem is fucked, and now new monsters are here fucking up the ecosystem more again. Kill them. And that's basically the loop. So that's my 2020. But it's 2020 was an interesting year. Not interesting in a good way for the most part, but I'm thankful that I got to spend time doing some stuff that I like, and hopefully 2021 it's more balanced for me. But at the very least, I do have some stuff. I mean, next week I really want to talk about Paper Mario and the Origami King, because it's the first time I played a Paper Mario game in a very long time, and I felt nothing but positively towards it. So amazing. So that's a pretty remarkable thing. Like I said, I think Bug Fables helped a lot with that, but I also have a bunch of other games that I'm going to play because I I have New Super Mario Brothers U plus Luigi to play, which I'm very excited for because I hear it's a very, very good Mario platformer. I'm going to get Mario 3D World when that comes out and play that crazy Bowser game that they've included with it.
Yo, looks Bowser Godzilla looks dope.
Nuts. That looks so good. Godslayer
Into
Bowser.
It.
What?
Let's go.
Wild. So I have that to look forward to. Bravely Default 2 is coming out. I also have Sharp FE to play.
I'm looking at Bravely Default 2 in the eyes and saying, don't do it.
I really want to play that game so bad.
No. Do it. Like, play the game. It's fine. But I'm talking to Bravely Default as a human.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm saying, don't do it again, because I'll be upset.
Oh.
Because I loved Bravely Default up until that one point.
I'll say, Bravely Second has kind of like... It has... People hold it in a different kind of esteem. Like, it's not as discussed as Bravely Default. And I think it's because it kind of flew under some people's radars. Yeah, but I think that the story of Bravely Second is legitimately very, very good. And
I'd have to check out Bravely Second, but God, Bravely Default just fucking...
I think the big thing for Bravely Second for me is that it nixes that whole stupid time travel shit and makes it a story about interpersonal connection.
Which is what I wanted, God damn it.
Which is like
it's set up to be.
The strongest thing about Bravely Default 1 is the fact that these characters really feel like people. They feel real, and they're
like,
when you find out about Ring a Bell, you're like, ah!
I think that's why the time loop hurt so much. Was just like, I'm so invested in these like characters.
The hardest,
and I've been playing for 60 hours.
Yeah.
By the time you hit that fucking loop, and you're like, oh God, I hate this. I have to play the game again.
It is very stupid.
And you're just like, oh, fuck this. And like, I mean, you tried to convince me to go back, and I tried to go back, but I was like, I can't stand these characters that I've already defeated being like, it's those kids again. And then somehow being stronger, even though they're weak because I've already beat them. Yeah. I was like, "Fuck this! This is so stupid."
I say what you know why they do that though. I've kind of just came to this realization. I'm pretty sure they do that so you can guarantee you get all the asterisks before the final boss.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, like,
but it's just like I mean, getting out of my face.
I have to say, getting the vampire asterisk was very cool because if you dual class a vampire Dark Knight in that game. Absorbing health and then using attacks that expend health.
Yeah. No,
you kind of get like the most OP fucking character build in the game.
I mean, Ninja too is just fucked up.
Yeah, Ninja and Vampire is good.
God, it's just so much. But yeah, it's just the thing. Like I just like you're like
it feels like padding, and it's the shittiest, softest padding ever.
Yeah,
it's really bad.
It feels like a brick wall made of pad. Like they're like, we'll put padding here, and for me it was a brick wall because I just went like, done,
stuck
I'm
dead.
out.
Yeah, and you're
I
fucking
just
tracks.
like, but I was like, oh, I have to grind more. Mm-hmm. I've played 60 hours of this game, and I have to grind more. What is this, Monster Hunter?
But it's definitely like it's the sort of experience that I think will not be replicated in 2. I think 2 is gonna probably take a couple more hints from Octopath, which are good for me because I like that game a lot. My biggest problem with Octopath was that I just didn't love the characters as much as I think I could have. And
the characters seemed a little flat.
In a game that's so character focused, you want that. But the big strength of the Bravely series is that the characters are really great, and the gameplay of Octopath is great, and feels a lot like the Bravely game. So I guess we'll see where it goes. It certainly looks very pretty, though. What a pretty looking fucking game. Those trailers of Bravely 2 look amazing. But yeah, a lot to look forward to, I think, in 2021. So, in terms of the game sphere, at the very least. So I guess we'll see where that takes us. But this is probably the longest bonus round we've ever done. So we should
I was about to say we wanted to do a short one, but it's too...
I'll have to cut in the... that was a lie. Later on. But thank you guys for listening. I hope 2021 is better than 2020 for you. I hope that for the whole world, but for you, our listeners especially.
Yes.
But thank you so much for going through all of this. I hope that, if there's stuff here that we talked about that you haven't checked out, maybe you want to give it a try, give it a look. But yeah, that's what helped us get through 2020. Thank you very much for listening.
Have a good night. Or day. Or something. I don't know. Okay, I'm gonna...